Hi, folks. Welcome to tonight's episode of the Boston Prayer and Share Hour. We're doing things a little differently today. We're actually recording this about 3:30 in the afternoon, and it'll hopefully, if everything works out the way I hope it does, which, oh my, better cross everything I got, because, sometimes when this goes on, I have a epic failure. But if everything goes right, this will appear on both of the Facebook Live, not Facebook Live because we won't be live, but on the both places. I'll set them to start at 7 o'clock, and hopefully it'll work just like clockwork. Probably not.
Big fat chance of not.
Probably true. It seems like it's been a while since we've been on
It has
here.
been a while.
Well,
though.
just last Thursday.
No, we weren't here last Thursday.
Oh yeah, last Thursday I did the early thing, and then we played a little bit of Ron Bridgewater, and
Yeah, I wasn't even a part of last Thursday. I was nobody last Thursday.
you were a hard-working woman last Thursday.
Yeah, I was nobody last Thursday.
Last Thursday's when your back first started hurting.
Oh man, did it ever.
That means for a week now you've been in pain and agony, and I say that lightheartedly, but it's
not lighthearted.
yeah, it's she was at the doctor this morning, and she's probably looking at having to have something done to her back.
Not gonna happen.
And I know everybody is just falling over and saying there is no way that something else could be wrong with Amy. It's tough, I know. I keep telling her she's falling apart. She don't have to keep proving it to me.
I have degenerative back spine disease. And I had, they said a micro discectomy. I always thought it was just a discectomy, but they said it was micro discectomy in my L4, L5 back like 100 years ago. And unfortunately, the other side has herniated. And so now down my right side, starting at, like my L4, L5 is excruciating into my butt cheek, down my leg, all the way to my toes. And
you didn't need more reasons for your toes to turn purple.
Yeah, no, I sure didn't. But they, so they're going to do, they did x-rays and showed me the x-rays, and they were ugly. I'm attached. My L4, L5 were laying right on top of each other. There was no space in between, which there's supposed to be, a gap in between your vertebrae. And there was no gap in between my L4, L5. They were laying right on top of each other. And oops, sorry about that. And so they did the x-ray. Now they're are going to set up an MRI, which they have to do a special procedure with my pacemaker group, where they have to come in and put my pacemaker in pacemaker mode, or in MRI mode, which is just such a big pain in the behind. And then they can do the MRI, and then they can do the MRI, and then they have to take my pacemaker back out of MRI mode and set it back into normal pacemaker. And
you don't do anything simple, do you?
No, heavens no. I wish I did. But then they want to do surgery, and I can't do that. I just can't afford another 6 weeks off work, and so surgery is out of the question.
So if anybody at your work just heard that, there may be people feigning at community corrections.
They cannot worry about that, because surgery is going to have to be out of the question.
One day at a time, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, well.
Your face just turned bright red.
I can tell. It's a blood pressure thing. It just went sky high. I can tell.
Well, we've got a few topics to talk about. Oh, well, let's talk about church camp.
Oh, yeah.
No compromise.
Yeah. And you know what? I didn't get the $5
Ice cream.
Dairy Queen, and I knew the thing. I can't tell you what it is now, but I knew it then because I had read it multiple times.
You mean Luke 9:23?
Yep, absolutely. And I knew it, but I didn't get the Dairy Queen card.
Well, since we'll be with Rob and Dawn tonight, you can complain to the horse's mouth.
Right. It won't do any good because, having a stroke brain, I can't remember it now, but.
So you're saying you didn't actually repeat the verse to anybody, you just knew.
Well, nobody ever asked. Dawn said she was going to ask multiple times, but nobody asked because I knew it then. But,
We had 6 baptisms that day.
Yeah, that was a great day.
I've been involved in several baptisms lately, huh?
You have.
2.
We're going to rename you John.
No. 2 a couple of weeks ago, 6 Saturday, and we've got another one. Bless you.
Thank you.
Did you notice how she grabbed her back? It hurts very bad for her to sneeze, and she sneezes all the time.
My goodness. I've got like a summer cold or something, and it's about to drive me nuts.
So, 2 baptisms, a couple of weeks later, 6 through Come As You Are Ministries that I helped with, and then we have another baptism service that's going to take place this Saturday at 7:30 in Mooresville, and looking forward to that. A gentleman has terminal cancer and wants to be baptized, and so we're going to take care of that.
Right.
We got a few things to talk about. Lots of stuff going on. I posted on Facebook, the ministry site, several things since we were together last. We talked about Alan West and the last time that I had him on in an interview, and he kind of fussed at me, and we've got a post up where you can hear that little segment of that interview. So that's there for you. I want to talk about a few things, and towards the end, before we do our time of prayer, I want to talk about what's going on in Cuba. And to me, it seems very ironic. It gets better.
I know. I saw that, but wow. I thought, man, they didn't even give me any good drugs at the doctor's office, but it sure looked like they did.
Yeah, but I seen it too. So we just talked, I think a week ago. No, it would have been, I don't know when we talked about it, but we talked about socialism and how it just don't work, and that the younger generation sometimes needs to listen to us old fogies. And okay, I'm the old fogey, and there's others that are my age and above that qualify, that they should listen to when we say socialism does not work. And you can look at what's
trying to do it again, see if I can get that same effect.
It has to be the very beginning.
Well, I keep trying to go back.
What she's talking about, she's scrolling through Facebook, and
on the ministry page.
Yes, and when I did my part last Thursday, I turned the camera on and walked around the table, and as I did, it's like all, what would you call that? I mean, I look like I've been painted psychedelic all over, and it looks kind of animated, and
like the pixels are all like.
Yeah, I think that's what they were. The pixels were.
Yeah, they were. They hadn't caught up with him yet, and the pixels were all just kind of. It's like you had some good drugs and you haven't. I don't know.
Actually, it was like you had some good drugs and you haven't, because I look normal now. Anyway, you can go to the Facebook ministry page and see that as well. But want to close out talking about Cuba, but for right now, I've done a little bit of looking into this Catholic priest. I followed what he's done as far as speaking out against.
I'm sorry,
she's playing.
Sorry.
He speaks out against the things that the church in general. He's more or less talking about the Catholic Church because he's a
Catholic priest.
He's a priest, but the church in general should be talking out about. And he really gets upset over the abortion issue and the lack of liberals, whether they're in the church or not in the church, lack of them following Christian teaching on the topic of abortion. And so
liberals are never going to follow the teaching of abortions. I mean, they're all for abortion.
Well, let's see. Here's how far he went not too long ago. He warned that Catholics who support the Democratic Party could face the fires of hell. And
true.
I guess the Wisconsin district, the bishop there has restricted him from ministry, kind of like a suspension. He's been removed as pastor of his parish. And his name is Father James Altman. Altman is only allowed to celebrate Mass in private and is barred from preaching. He has also been instructed to take a 30-day spiritual retreat to give him the possibility to spiritually heal and recharge and address the issues that caused the issuance of this decree. Why is that important? Well, here's why it's important. You expect the world to do things like this, but when the church starts doing these kind of things against men and women who are bringing the gospel and preaching the right thing, you see, these say no compromise.
No compromise.
And when it comes to the word of Christ, there can be no compromise. We can compromise on where we're going to eat supper. We can compromise on what color stove and refrigerator we're going to get. Or we could have a couple weeks ago. We ain't compromising nothing now because this one's staying.
It's there forever.
We can compromise whether or not we sit at a table or just move the tables and sit here. We can compromise about those kind of things. But when it comes to preaching the word, following the word and teachings of Jesus Christ, there can be no compromise. And I give this man kudos for what he has done. It's interesting in this article, which actually comes from NCR Online, calls him a rogue Wisconsin priest. A rogue Wisconsin priest.
Wow.
So it's bad enough that the world does those kind of things, but when the church does...
Wow. A rogue Wisconsin priest. Well, if that's the case, then the world needs more rogue priests.
There you go. Call them what you want. They just need people that'll preach the gospel.
Absolutely.
Whether they're in the pulpit or they're on the streets or in somebody's living room, we've got to have people preaching the good news.
Absolutely.
I showed you a video that was on Live Action, which is a pro-life. I always have to slow down and think about what I'm going to say there because I can get easily tongue-tied. There's pro-life and there's pro-choice and there's pro-abortion and
Well, I always look at it like this. Pro is a positive word. So I don't use pro-choice because pro is positive. So it makes pro-choice sound like it's an upbeat, good thing. Oh, well, I'm just pro-choice. No, you're pro-death. If you're pro-choice, that's only the choice of one person. One person in that gets a choice. That baby doesn't get a choice. The father doesn't get a choice. None of the other family members get a choice. One person gets that choice, and that's the mother. And if she chooses abortion, she's choosing death. So it's pro-abortion, pro-death, or pro-life. So you're either pro-death or you're pro-life, one or the other.
I'll try to remember
that. Pro is a positive. Anti, they like to call us anti-abortion because anti leaves a negative connotation to something. Because if you hear pro-choice people talking, it's always pro-choice and anti-abortion, right? You always see anti-abortion signs, and you never see them refer to us as pro-choice or pro-life, I'm sorry, because pro is positive. You don't see them say stop pro-lifers because that's a positive connotation. Stop anti-abortionists.
So it's a very short video on an email that they sent out. And a young man, what do you think? Mid-20s probably?
Yeah, probably.
They're interviewing him like an on-the-street reporter kind of thing. And so they're asking him questions about abortion. And his reaction is that he's pro-choice, and he's not being arrogant or snippy or flippant or anything like that. He's just answering their questions honestly.
He's pro-death.
And so they ask him to watch this video, and I've also got it that where you see the picture of live action. You can go there and see the video that they asked him to watch.
It's so informative. You need to watch it.
It's only about 3 or 4 minutes.
Yep. Very informative.
But it is, and you may remember the man's name. It's
Lamentino.
It's not important. I just thought you may have it off the top of your head.
You asked the stroke victim that.
Sometimes it works.
Yeah, well.
But he is a doctor who has performed over 1,200 abortions in his lifetime. And he is now a Christian man and very adamant against abortion. But he goes into great detail about what takes place during an abortion that's done in the second trimester. Graphically shows, animation?
It's animated, but it's not like cartoonish animated. I mean, it's
just a picture of an outline of a baby, and he graphically shows that you take these forceps-like things that have teeth on both sides, to where if you grab a hold, you grab a hold of your finger, it won't let go without you letting off of, and shows that they go in and they pull off limb by limb by limb by limb by organ by organ by intestines, and then they get to crushing the skull and pulling out pieces of the skull. And then it even goes into that they have to take all of those pieces and put it back together like a jigsaw puzzle to make sure that they got everything out, because if they were to leave something in the mother, probably would end up causing death, but definitely serious issues.
Right.
And so that's what this video is. It's basically showing what happens during the second trimester abortion. And they went back to the guy that they were interviewing. He watched that video and...
Levantino, Dr. Levantino. I was close.
You were close.
Not too bad for a stroke victim.
There you go. So they said, describe that video in one word. And he, one word. All I can think of is wrong.
Yep.
And you could tell it had impacted him in a major way. That should never, ever happen. And they asked him more questions, and he had totally changed.
Yep.
Totally changed. And so the point of the email that came out is, can this video change the minds of others? I mean, it's titled, Will His Mind Change on Abortion, Episode 1. And the answer on this time was, it did. And yes, he did. He changed his mind. So, one person at a time. You know, Amy or I or you as individuals or as a couple, there's only a certain number of people that we can reach. But boy, you take Christians everywhere that reach 1 or 2 or 10. All of a sudden, you've reached thousands.
Yep.
One person at a time. Let's see.
And that's not the only video that he has done.
No,
he's done several. He's done a video called The Silent Scream, which was amazing. It's an amazing video.
It's a little longer, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's more of a documentary.
Right. And it's an amazing video.
A new country where, well, I say new on the list recently of us bringing up. I don't think it's ever gone back to being good. Afghanistan is now a place where Christians are back in the place of being persecuted by Islamic extremists. And as the Taliban moves back in, it's so, I don't know, it's so disheartening. It's just like this. As America pulls back, the Taliban moves in.
Yeah.
And, 20 years worth of whatever is just out of going. And don't get me wrong, Trump was wanting to pull them out as well. So this isn't actually a Biden initiative. Trump started this. But to watch and think of all of those who died, and you would think that there could have been some way, peacekeeping force, something that could have stood in as a buffer in between us leaving, and you can just watch it. I mean, it's happening right in front of our face.
Yeah.
But the Christians in Afghanistan are being targeted. And when we talk this topic, we talk about Nigeria pretty much every time. I read earlier today that since the 121 that were kidnapped, I think a little over a week ago, they have closed schools, and over 13 million children are not going to school because of fear of being kidnapped and being held for ransom.
Let me tell you, if our kids or our grandkids or whatever was over there, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, I better go ahead and pull up the prayer list while I'm thinking about it, while we're talking.
Probably would be a good idea.
We're kind of hitting on some things that we've touched on briefly in the past little bit, but things that have continued going. And this story in particular, the wildfires the headline says, wildfires wreak havoc across a dozen western states. more than 900,000 acres burned, closing in on 1 million acres where fire has just gone crazy.
And this happens every year.
It does.
And it's just so sad. And it's not always, usually due to someone's ignorance.
Many times.
Just because somebody wants to be ignorant. Last year it was set because of somebody playing with fireworks or something, wasn't it?
I'm pretty sure.
Or no, it was like a couple of years ago, because we were going through Tennessee when they very first started. I don't think they even knew that they were even going crazy. Remember, we were driving through and we were like, what is all that smoke?
It's been a few years now.
Yeah, I guess it has been. It's
Probably
been a while since we've been to Tennessee.
Yeah, because it was with the fires that ravaged Gatlinburg.
Yeah, tore Gatlinburg up. That was before Dolly started all of her.
Yes, that's the reason for Dolly doing the fund.
Well, that's been a while.
The National Interagency Fire Center says more than 14,200 wildland firefighters and support personnel are working to control 67 large fires.
Wow.
Idaho, Arizona, Montana, and California account for a large majority of the incidents, but other states like Wyoming, Washington, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah are also having problems. And when you look at the pictures, you look at that right there, Amy, and you think, how will they ever stop that?
It's crazy.
There's only so much that man can do, which is where you have to lift those things up to prayer. And first of all, prayer for safety.
Oh, absolutely.
Homes can be replaced, property can be done something with later, but pray for the safety of those in the way of the fire, and once again, those first responder emergency personnel that are out there
going towards it.
Yeah, they're going towards the fire. And one of the things that always just sticks in my mind when you think about these kind of fires is when they realize that the fire, they can't get away, they go underneath those blanket things.
Yeah, the fire blankets.
Fire blanket. And you got to think, man.
Yeah.
What a feeling that must be to know that a fire
is going over you,
going on top of you.
Yeah.
And
when you see them out there and they have fought for so long and they've been on that line for days and they are so tired, and you see them just propped up against a tree to take a nap long enough to be able to regain some kind of mental strength to be able to go right back out and fight again. I mean, how sad is that? That makes all of our griping and complaining and my back pain minimal. It makes it that minuscule, because we do an awful lot of griping and complaining, and there's people that are out days and days and days fighting fires and criminals and never complain. And are doing it without complaint, and they're running towards it.
Well, I know you don't have your glasses on, soon be able to focus, but all of those little red things you do there, that's where there are active fires. And
there's slews of those little red things for as far as I can see.
You mentioned that we have these every year, the fires out there, but since June the 1st, we've seen at least 67 stations with lengthy reporting periods stretching back at least 75 years that have tied or broken all-time heat records. Many of those occurred in the exceptional Pacific Northwest heat wave in late June. And strangely enough, a big portion of those are north of California, in Idaho and Wisconsin. Washington. Wisconsin
is right here above California. Right there.
No. So, a lot of people include this situation with the wildfires every year as some of the parts of the prophecy for end times, natural disasters. And while this is less of a natural disaster than a hurricane or an earthquake, it could have been started by a human or a lightning strike or anything. It's still a natural disaster, because if it wasn't, it would be put out within hours or days, and it would all be over. And so we bring up that end times and end times prophecy, and we probably should bring it up even more than what we do. But all the more important goes in with the sermon this past Saturday.
Absolutely.
No one knows the day nor the hour.
This last Sunday.
Oh, did I say Saturday?
You said Saturday.
It was this last Sunday, our first Sunday night service here at the Father's house.
And it was a good sermon.
Thank you. We don't know the day nor the hour, so we've got to be ready. And we're getting close on the things that the Bible says has to take place before Jesus comes back. And keep checking those things off the list.
Absolutely.
Pretty soon they're going to be, well, the trumpets of the Lord will sound.
And when they do, we got to be ready. If they're not ready, and you go to judgment, and you hear those words, "Depart from me, I never knew you," how sad is that going to be? Man,
I noticed when I was talking about that Sunday night, it affected you. I could just see the look that you had of, you don't get a second chance.
You don't. You do not get a second chance. And the part that affects me is because there's so many people that we know and are very, very close to that either one, don't care, or two, just don't get it. Just don't get it. And they're going to hear, "Depart from me, I never knew you." And that tears us up.
Because it lumps them in with the same people that are doing horrible things.
Absolutely.
Because there's only one of two things to hear. It's
right.
You're not going to hear, "Well, you're a pretty good person, but you still can't come into heaven."
Right.
Pretty good doesn't even get brought up in it. You either knew Jesus or you didn't know Jesus. And when I say knew Jesus, I'm talking about knew him and followed him.
Right.
Even the devil knows Jesus.
Absolutely.
Even the devil knows the power that God has.
And it really, really bothers me, because I know for a fact that some of the people that I'm talking about
think they're okay?
I don't know that they think they're okay. They just don't put a thought to it. They were raised in a Christian school. They were raised by a Christian mother. They've got the background, they've got the knowledge, but that's where it lays. That's where it stays. They've got the seed. They just never water that seed. It never grows. It never goes anywhere. And if you don't grow that seed, it's not going to grow. It's not going anywhere. And you don't know when that day is going to come. And that tears me up.
As it should. If your heart doesn't break for those who are lost, then you must have a cold, cold heart. Or a hard, hard heart. Well, speaking of things that we've talked about, and we're back to the situation in Cuba. It also, things are happening in Hong Kong as well, but we want to focus in on Cuba right now. We talked about socialism not too long ago.
Right.
And I think the younger generation, not inclusive, but many of the young generation thinks that Well, socialism sounds pretty good. You take care of everybody. And that's the love and the peace that kind of like the hippie thing from the
Yeah.
60s.
Well,
Peace and love. Well, you can peace and love into bankruptcy.
absolutely.
Because when your government goes bankrupt, so goes your economy, and so go jobs, and so go food.
Right.
And the people of Cuba are demanding change from their government after shortages of food and medicine were made even worse. Now, the made even worse part is important here. Made even worse by the COVID-19 pandemic. There are some people right now that says that the protests in Cuba are because of COVID-19.
Huh.
Situation in Cuba was horrible decades
Absolutely.
before COVID-19. Decades.
Absolutely.
So it did get made worse because people couldn't get out to get food. So there's a shortage. And people weren't working to make things or, harvest things and things like that. So there's a shortage. Getting medicine to people who won't get out, that, I'm pretty sure Cuba doesn't have Kroger delivery for their medication. So it's been made worse, but they say this week's protests are the biggest anti-government demonstration in the history of the communist regime, from when Fidel Castro himself led the revolution in Cuba. Demands for freedom. Isn't that great to hear? Demands for freedom. When it comes to Cuba, you don't think of the word freedom in our lifetime. But demands for freedom are echoing across the island nations as thousands of protesters take to the streets, the likes of which have not been seen in more than 60 years. Protests have been mostly peaceful, though there were clashes with police and Cuban special forces, and police were out in greater force to patrol the streets. Now, that's kind of a general news story. You see videos that have been smuggled out, so to speak. They only have their internet for very short periods of time, so it's not like they can throw it on YouTube and get it out, because they don't have internet to get it onto YouTube. But some that have come out shows a little bit different story, with police beating people and
wow.
Senator Marco Rubio, who Hispanic himself, is taking a leading role in being outspoken for the people of Cuba and against the government in Cuba. Another one is Senator Ted Cruz, and I believe it's his family that actually came from Cuba. So he's first generation in America of Cuban descendants. And this is a big deal, folks. It's a big deal to us in the United States. First of all, it's history, because think about when communism fell, when the Berlin Wall fell. That's a major part of history in the last 50 years, when communism fell in the Soviet Union. Communism falls in Cuba. That's another major step against communism. And so communism and socialism they're like fraternal twins. They're not identical, but boy, they're as close as you can get, right, and not be identical. And some people would debate that, and that's all just semantics on the debate part. Just if you got to debate whether it's communism or socialism, then you got too much time on your hands, and you need to just be worried about people that live in that situation, because you're obviously not living in it if you're debating whether it's communism or socialism. But you can look back on things, and in our lifetime, there's not dozens of things that will stand out in history forever, But you think about Apollo 11 and the landing on the moon. You think about 9/11. You think about Vietnam War. Just so many different things. And then we mentioned the Berlin Wall falling and the Soviet Union crumbling. And it's a big deal. And it's a big deal for us because it shows that socialism doesn't work.
Oh, absolutely not.
The people of Cuba have been repressed for decades. People will risk their lives to float on a raft. It seems like it's like a 90-mile ocean area between us and Cuba. I could be wrong on that. But they'll risk their lives in boats, in rafts, in anything that will float, basically, to get away.
Right.
Knowing that in the midst of all of that, if they get caught, they're probably going to get shot and killed. No trial.
Nope. My grandfather, when he was alive back, I don't know how long ago, anyway, was talking to someone that is not related by blood, but related by marriage. And she told him, oh, Castro's a wonderful person. And he literally about fell out of his chair. And I thought we were going to have to restrain him.
See, now I picture when somebody says something that stupid, you got to do one of a few different things. You either got to need to be restrained before you go nuts on a person. Just your body just physically explode.
Oh, yeah.
Or you got to get away from that person because you can't.
He ended up having to just get away from her because we thought we were going to have to restrain him, and then he just had to leave because he was a better Christian person than to rip every single hair out of her head. Because it was just ridiculous. But he was a wonderful person. But she is one of these where socialism is a wonderful idea. Also protested her own son being in Afghanistan. Stood on the corner holding a sign, wanting the war to stop.
Let's go to the Lord in
Well,
prayer.
I want you to. I just came across this story, which I don't know how new this story is, but it is amazing.
I'm going to guess it's fairly new because Victor Marks, who is by chance a friend of the podcast and ministry, only posted it 6 hours ago. And if you follow his stuff, he don't post things in the
right.
He's posting up-to-date stuff.
But this story is awesome. He's 7 years old. 7-year-old boy approached a group of 3 police officers in a restaurant and stopped them and asked them if he could pray with them. Held their hands and stood in a circle and prayed with these police officers.
I'll read it for you.
Okay, thank you.
He grabbed their hands and prayed the sweetest prayers that I have ever heard. He thanked the Lord for calling them to be police officers and asked for the Lord to protect them while they were busy protecting people.
Is that not awesome? And it shows the picture of the 7-year-old boy holding hands with these police officers in this restaurant. And they've got their heads bowed and they're praying. That's an amazing story.
I don't even know what to say.
7 years old. Number one, he's got amazing parents. Number
that
two,
was my thought. His
this
parents
boy
have got to be
is awesome. I'm going to step away and take this because that may be the
Okay.
hospital with the MRI. Oh. Hello?
I'll give her a second if it's not an important call. I want her to be in here when I talk about something that goes along with the Cuba issue. While we're doing that, let's go ahead to our prayer list while we're waiting on her.
I'm not interested.
Oh, she's going to be back. I heard her say, I'm not interested. we'll run through the prayer list. Amanda, Becky Asher, her mom said that she was doing better and recuperating. Becky Gills, Curtis, who is Beth Sheldon's cousin, has actually had his valve replacement and is recuperating very well. Brenda Carson, Damon Dobbs is on the list. He's a friend here, been in here several times. He broke his arm. Debbie Dolan, Donna Brady's aunt, Sue Fields, family of Lisa Innes's co-worker, and Lisa has given me a couple more requests that we'll leave as unspoken for now. Matthew Gain, Gracie, Linda Schadenfro's granddaughter. She told me that she is doing better. Her medication seems to have helped with the seizures, and so that's a good thing. Jacob, Jerry Ainsworth's mother, who is continuing to recuperate. Jesse, Joe, Karen Ruth's mother, Karen Ruth herself, Kay Wheeler, Lori Shelton, Lisa Innes and her family. She told me that their situation is getting better. Loretta's daughter-in-law, Shelby, Manuel Viveros, who we call Victor and Victor, Mary, who is Jennifer's mother, Mary Bailey and family, and that situation certainly needs to always be in our prayers and our hearts. Michelle, Noah Berry, Olivia and Carter, Pam, Praying Boy Preston, persecution. I'm going to change that just to persecution for Christians all over the world, because it's more than just Nigeria. And we took a special interest in Nigeria, but it's just persecution around the world. Randy, Roberta, Ronnie, Shay Michaelonis, your law enforcement leaders, the Thin Blue Line, Tanya's dad, and all the unspoken requests. You got a solicitation call, didn't you?
Yes, and I wanted to reach out and choke him.
It's a good thing that technology's not there yet. Maybe someday that you can actually reach out and touch someone. I'm not sure how that's
it would not be a good thing then.
I'm not sure how that's going to work, but 50 years ago, talking into a piece of plastic like this that has no cord, that you can ask to do things. And
he asked me what year I was born, and I told him, and he said something about, do you have any kids in school from K through 12? At my age, do you think I would? I would hope not.
Is that thunder?
Do we have a dog under our feet? No, so it's not.
That's not I wanted to say a special prayer for Cuba, and I actually am going to edit this prayer out and put it into a TikTok video. Now I know you're going to give a funny look, but
you might want to edit that out too, but I don't know.
Yeah, she's not figured out the importance of TikTok and the Christian importance of TikTok. Someday I'll tell her, I told you so, when we have like 86 million people following us. But there are some ungodly numbers for some people, hundreds of thousands.
Oh, I get that, but they're not good videos.
No, there are that kind of numbers for Christian
I hope
videos.
I hope because
see, I've told you before, she only associates TikTok with bad. If it was
because I have to sit all day. I don't sit all day, but I hear TikTok videos that are so revolting that it just makes me so mad that I just have a huge problem with that. I get really tired of a lot of social media anyway, because it's just, some of it's just not used for so much good.
You're right.
I think people just overuse social media and not dig deeper in. And I'm just as guilty as anybody else. I'm preaching to myself too.